want to talk about some questions. If anybody has more they'd like to jump in. There was something actually just came in, and I think if y'all are hanging on, I think this is a really good thing to watch. And so, Mike, since you have the presenter, I'll ask you to do this. I love this question. So earlier mentioned turning on auto suggestions for variables, and I think this is really important to show because a lot of new users, even existing users have been using Flare for some time, may not know about this. And I was wondering, Mike, if you could bring up Flare and show everybody where we can turn on the option for auto suggestion, or where we can turn it off if we find it distracting and we don't want it. So Mike's showing it now. I hope you can all see his screen. So we're going to go. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I've pulled Flare up. I went to the File tab. Once you open the File tab, in the bottom right corner of the File tab, there's this little gear icon that says Options. Now, if we go into the Options, and actually everybody, I would say stay away from this for your first 3 weeks. But once you've got at least 3 weeks under your belt, then go spelunking around, have a dig around in here. You can really custom tailor your own personal Flare interface. And if we go to the auto suggestion tab, normally these are all turned off, but you can check enable auto suggestion and then even enable snippet auto suggestion. And then, like Jen said, if it's being overly verbose, if it's making too many recommendations, you can actually tell it, how many characters must be a match before it makes a recommendation. And then the cool thing is, once you turn all this on, not only will it work for variables, but I have mine set to do snippets as well. So if you remember my little kitchen example I did earlier, I did it real fast. You guys probably didn't notice, but if I put my cursor on a new line and all I have to do is type DANGE, and boom, Flare pops up and says, hey, wait a minute. Why are you typing that? That's already in the snippet library. Or if it was a variable match, you'd be like, hey, we already have a variable for that value. So even a junior writer can get prompted of, hey, no, don't hard type that. And all I have to do is press the enter key and boom, it will drop in either that variable or that snippet pretty much auto-magically. It's pretty cool. All right, back to you, Jen.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for asking that. It was a fantastic question, and it's one of my favorite features. Another thing I wanted to kind of bring up again, when you were talking about conditions, and I thought a couple times, and I want to repeat it for everybody. The question was, we were talking about controlling conditions on the target level and of course the snippet, but what about the editor? So sometimes, and again, this is one of those things that's sometimes hard to see in our XML editor, but perhaps we're putting conditions in our topic, and when we're editing, maybe we want to show and hide the conditions that we have at play in the visual editor. And I was wondering if you could just point out, Mike, quickly on the XML editor there, where we can, next to the preview button there, how we can control the conditions that we're seeing right there in the editor. It doesn't necessarily control, it's not about the output so much, but it's what the editor is seeing in terms of the conditions at play. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
All right. And again, this is one of those things, love it or hate it, it's there if you love it. So some people don't want to just see it in the preview, what the customer would see. I literally want to see it in the editor itself. So what I just did is there's this right next to the preview, there's this little icon. Now it's all grayed out now because I clicked it, but it looks like two little colored highlighters or something. That will bring up a list of all of my conditions. Now remember that purple one that I applied to list item number 2? I've highlighted that purple item. I've chosen exclude. And now when I click OK, it will literally modify the topic itself during my edit session. Now, this is one of those things, I will be honest, I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with. I probably wouldn't use it for this type of example, only because I've seen some people forget to turn that back on and they get some weird publishing results because there's content in the topic they don't even know is there. But there are times when I absolutely love, love, love it. And that is time. So let me go ahead and turn it back on so I don't forget. I've worked on customer documents where there might be just this huge section. It's like, okay, this entire heading 2 and the following 400 lines is tagged for one customer type. And then the next heading 2 and 400 lines is tagged for a second cut, which can make that topic a nightmare to edit. So in a case like that, I love that feature. So a lot of people don't even know it's there. It is. The only other kind of best practice rule I would recommend is, again, you don't want to avoid forgetting that it's on. So I will typically turn it on if it makes my editing easier, but I've gotten in the habit of then turning it back off again before I save and close that topic, just so I don't forget that there's something hidden behind the scenes there. Is that what you were hoping for, Jen? Do you want
Yeah.
to add anything?
Nope, that's perfect. That's exactly, yeah, I think that's very helpful. Another question that came up a couple times that maybe we can talk about, and I'll sort of summarize. When we were talking about snippets, what about using snippets in the middle of a list? And how does Flare handle that? In other words, we may have step 1 and 2, we may insert some snippet information. How are lists supported after that? I mean, how do we handle some of the list handling? And I know we didn't get a chance to show that, but Flare does have some pretty interesting list handling capabilities when we're breaking lists up and putting in supporting information. And maybe you could just quickly show some of those options in using our XML structure bars there.
Sure. I'm going to kind of hold out the complexity of the snippet bit just for a moment. Let's walk before we run.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to fake it a little bit. So I already have a list here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to right click on this list and I'll just copy that. I'm going to go way down to the bottom of the topic and I'm going to paste it in again. Now, what I just pasted should not have happened. It should be 1, 2, 3, 4 all over again. But my lower list has automatically become a continuation of my upper list. How in the world? That's Flare doing a bit of magic. What I can do is if I right click on this lower list, all of your typical word processor type options are here. I can sort the list alphabetically. Maybe it's a bulleted list. You want to sort it alphabetically. I can reverse the list. Maybe I have 10 steps that were the installation procedure, and now I need to write the removal procedure. Copy, paste, reverse, fix a few verbs. Boom, you're there. But the magic part is up here. List start number. I can force the list to start on any number I want, or in this case, because it's highlighted in blue, continue sequence. Now, if I click continue sequence and I turn that off, well, now they are 2 separate lists. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. If I right click and I turn that back on, continue sequence, well, now the lower list is a continuation of the upper list. So it's pretty easy peasy. Now, where it can get a bit cantankerous is, again, if that list is in a snippet and you're trying to do a continuation, there's 2 tricky things. If this lower list was in a snippet, the first thing I would need to do is recognize I can't do that continuation here. I would actually have to go to the snippet itself, set that list to do continuation. But then the second thing you have to be aware of, that won't actually compile together correctly until you do the build. In the topic itself, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the lower snippet list would be 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's because the snippet that exists here, that's just kind of beyond the scope of what the editor can do. That's like too many layers of abstraction. However, once we build the output, that snippet becomes a native list in this topic. And once it's native, then that continuation will work. Did that make sense, or did you do too much hand waving there, Jen?
Nope, that's perfect. Thanks. I hope that helped for the folks that asked about list handling and continuing on that content if we have supporting information in between them. Okay, so we'll go ahead and keep opening it up to questions if anybody has anything. One interesting question just came in. Is there any limit to the content in a variable? I mean, are there some best practices there? You know, we talk about it being a short string of text, really. Do you have any best practices or recommendations there?
Absolutely. Just like Jen said, the biggest limitation of variables is they are limited to text strings. For example, I can't put a graphic in a variable. It just won't work. However, if you get a little bit mad sciencey, a little creative, by using content inside of a snippet, you can kind of simulate a graphical variable. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's say I have a sentence here, and I realize I'm getting kind of long-winded here, but this is one of those, it's easier to explain if you see it. You know, in accordance with, I'll just put in a variable, my company procedures, you know, blah, 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 blah. Well, that works great until marketing comes back and says, oh, you know, all those partners we publish for, we not only want their name, but we want their little logo, their company logo, right next to their name. Rot-row. That just wrecked my whole plan here. Well, here's where I'm going to get sneaky. Just as a placeholder, I'm going to type the word logo here, just so I have something I can grab onto. I'm going to highlight this bit of text here, company logo. It would actually be easier if I did the whole paragraph, but I'm going to see if I can do it with just this little section. I'll hit create snippet. I'll call this one comp logo. So now what I would do, I would actually put my cursor there. I would insert 3 or 4 different company logos. I'll just use my little triangle here just as an example, and literally put conditional markers on them. So now I have a little snippet. The variable can be any company name I want. I can put 3 or 4 company logo or more if I need to with conditional markers on them. Save that construct. And now when we go back to the topic, you can see it there. But now if we ever need to edit this in the future, maybe we add a 5th partner. Well, I could have used that snippet in 1,000 topics. But to accommodate the 5th partner, I just go edit that one snippet file, add the 5th graphic, the 5th little logo, put a conditional marker on it, and then create a target to include that condition and do the variable override for that company's name. So can we put graphics in variables? No. But by getting creative and using a snippet with conditional markers, then we can kind of create a pseudo graphical variable. I hope that made sense because I did that really fast. Oh, I see the question. Why would I do that? Well, again, maybe if when I publish, I want this to say in accordance with MadCap software, and it shows the MadCap software logo. And tomorrow when I publish, it says in accordance with Microsoft, and it shows the Microsoft logo. And that afternoon I publish and it says in accordance with Apple, and I show the Apple logo. Well, that's now a little construct of name and logo. I could put that in 1,000 topics, but now if I ever need to delete a partner or add a new partner, I don't have to hand edit all 1,000 topics. I just edit that one snippet and it takes me 2 seconds. Hope that made sense with more of a why.
Yeah, great. Another question, just for a bit of clarity, we were talking about conditions. When you're applying conditions, you mentioned that setting a single condition to include changes the way Flare handles conditions. Do you get any kind of warning when you click that first include radio button? Maybe you can clarify that a little bit.
Oh my goodness. I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
But I will be honest, I don't think I've worked on a fresh, clean project where I've done that for the very, very first time in a long, long time. So I could be wrong on that. So I don't think so. I think it assumes you understand the logic behind it, but I'll only put an 80% quality factor on that answer. I might just be too much of a dinosaur working on, too many great big giant old Flare projects.
We'll take that as a lookup and get back to you. I think we have time for maybe one more question. I'm looking at the time. One just came in. If you add a graphic to a snippet, can that snippet be resized according to the defined size of the graphic in the PDF? For example, a logo appearing in multiple PDFs might be sized differently.
The answer is, could it be done? Absolutely. However, I would avoid doing anything specifically on the snippet itself other than naming the graphic with a style class. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, thinking about my little company logo here in the example I gave a few minutes ago, even though I gave it poorly, if I go back into the snippet itself, I would not want to, like, for example, right click on this graphic, go into properties, and then go into size and manually apply a size. I mean, if I don't recommend that, why is there an interface to do that? Well, in some corner cases, a customer might need to do that. But as a best practice, I would avoid that at all costs. What I would do is try to think semantically. What is the use case of this graphic? The use case is this is a customer logo. So I would actually go into my style sheet, and the same way I created that class of paragraph called danger, I would locate my image styles, locate IMG, create a selector, name this customer logo, click OK. And now I have a style. Where in the world did it go? I am losing my mind here.
Maybe the medium, just making sure you're in the right medium that you want to show.
There it is. I don't know what happened to the first one, but there's the second one. So now that I have a class of image, well, now I would go in and I would set this class to a size. So we're extrapolating that sizing out one layer. So in the snippet itself, there is no sizing data. I would simply select that graphic and apply that style class, customer logo. Oh, I didn't save, did I? Dang, Regger. I hate it when I try to go super fast. There it is, cust logo. All right, nothing changed there because I haven't told that style to do anything now. But that's the beauty of it. If I go to PDF, I can say I want that styled graphic to be big. If I go to a tablet, I want it to be small. If I go to a web browser, I want it to be large. So we name the graphic semantically. That gives us the ability to control it externally from the style sheet. And that external rule can be manipulated at any time for a specific output. I hope that made sense, A, and B, I hope that answered the question.
Yep, that's great. Okay, I'm looking at the time. I think we have time for maybe one more. Could we talk a little bit about how CSS settings interact with a responsive target? So, for example, maybe in your, and I think you're referring to CSS mediums for the person who asked this question. If you have mobile-only settings, can you use the same CSS at the desktop? So I'm not quite sure if you're talking about using different CSS mediums. But certainly the styles that you create in your style sheet, you can have some styles for desktop, you can have some styles for mobile, and those styles will take effect when we have the smaller screen size.
All right, I'm going to take that and I'll go two different directions with it. At a course level, there's things like the heading 1. If I want the heading 1 to be blue on a desktop, if I want it to be pink on a tablet, and I want it to be red on a smartphone, I could do that very easily by going into the style sheet and using those mediums. What that will not do is move it around for me. It will just change its presentation based on the device. So that's mediums. There is another way more advanced technique. We go into this in super depth in the advanced training class. But if you go to the Home tab inside of Flare, there's a button labeled Responsive Layout. And if I open this up, there's actually this dedicated little tool here. So what if I want 3 graphics side by side on the desktop, but if they load this on a phone, instead of getting all mashed up and getting a horizontal scroll bar, I want those to flip and be stacked vertically. All right, I've got 1 minute to do this. I don't know if I can. Let's see how quickly I can do this. I'll put my cursor on this blank line here. Over here in the responsive layout editor, I'll click New Responsive Style. I'm going to name this Mic Demo. There are 3 built-in templates, 3 across, 3 vertical between phone and desktop, or I could do 2 side by side, 50-50, or there's a template to do like 66%, 33%, and then stack vertically. You can create custom templates as well. I'm just going to go for that one that was 3 across. It's named Mic Demo. I click OK. And now Flare's going to do some heavy lifting on the back end. It's updating a whole bunch of different files, not just the style sheet. So it's going to come back here in a second. And now I can see Mic Demo listed here. Now I click Insert Row, and it is just dropped in. It looks like a table, but it's not. It's a responsive construct. And so we're running out of time here. So you can see the text cell 1, cell 2, cell 3. That's temporary. Once you put your content into it, you can delete those 3 labels. But if I do a save and a preview, you can see cell 1, cell 2, cell 3 side by side. But if I shrink this down, now they stack up. So that's technically still using styles to achieve that behavior. It's just rather than you having to go in, and what I just did took like 7 different classes. There's div styles, there's complex selectors. Flare did all that stylistic heavy lifting. I just deal with this simplified responsive layout interface. And that brings me a minute over. I apologize. I did that as fast as I could because that's a pretty complex topic.
Great job, Mike. All right. I know that we didn't get to 100% of the questions. I think we did pretty well here, but we will be sending out the document to everybody, so not to worry if we didn't get to yours live. Again, I think we just have that one last slide. Oh, yeah. So wonderful. So this was the last one. So just again, thanks everybody. This was a long day. We appreciate you hanging on with us. This was a lot to cover. And I hope you found this helpful, and I hope you'll join us for another session. Like I said, please visit our site. We have tons of new webinars coming up between now and the end of May to support everybody's new temporary normal as we navigate through these crazy times. And I so appreciate all the great questions and how everybody was so engaged. It was wonderful. So thanks, Mike, so much for doing this with me. It's always fun. We hope to see you guys on another webinar and another training coming up soon. And I hope everybody just stay safe. Please be well, and we'll see you soon. So thanks, everybody.
Cheers, everybody.